Hello, and welcome to Luna's Den of Horror. This is a podcast of all things horror, from movies to life and all that's in between. Let's get this episode 3 started. Today I'm going to talk about original movies versus their remakes. This will be my first of many, since there are a lot of remakes to compare to the originals. I am not anti-remake. I actually don't mind remakes as long as they're good. I think a lot of remakes flop just because the storyline is just terrible. I will watch a remake just so I can make my own opinion on it. I'm going to start with Poltergeist. It is one of my favorite movies. The original still stands up today. Poltergeist is about the Freelings, a family who starts encountering ghost activity, or poltergeist activity specifically, in their home. The activity eventually escalates to the point that their youngest daughter, Carol Ann, disappears into the spirit realm, and their fight to get her back. The whole atmosphere of the movie is spot on. The family is very likable. You really feel for them when Carol Ann disappears. As the story progresses, the family fights to get Carol Ann back from the spirit realm with the help of a team from a local college and Tangina, who is a psychic medium. They get Carol Ann back, but the fight is not over. Everything from the acting to the atmosphere of this movie is spot on. Tobe Hooper did a great job along with Spielberg creating this masterpiece. Now, to compare it to the remake, the Poltergeist remake is one of the worst remakes I have ever watched. I don't mind remakes at all as long as they are decent. This movie wasn't even decent. Let's start with the family in the remake. The Bowens were a terrible family. While they weren't the perfect family, they just did not seem like a family at all. There was no chemistry between the parents and none between them and their children. They just treated each other badly, and there was no family bond. I get that they were having issues, but it was like watching strangers trying to be a family. The new Carol Ann, I couldn't wait for the ghost to take her. The brother was even more annoying, and I couldn't wait for the ghost to take him as well. The whole storyline and atmosphere was just bad. They even tried to remake the clown scene from the original, and I was cheering for the clown. I mean, come on. Who cheers for the poltergeist clown? They changed the reasoning for the hauntings too, which I thought was just meh. It just seemed very lackluster. The original reason was much better. I'm trying to not give anything away in case someone has not seen either of these movies, but I highly recommend seeing the original. I really want to meet some of the actors and actresses from the original. There's also a rumor that's been floating around for a very long time that the movie was cursed because they used real skeletons, which they did for the swimming pool scene. There were some tragic and horrible deaths for some who were in the franchise, including the murder of Dana Freeling, played by Dominique Dune, who was murdered by her ex-boyfriend, and even Carol Ann herself, who was played by Heather O'Rourke. She died from basically septic shock. Both of these actresses had bright futures, and I would have loved to have seen where they went with their acting journeys. I don't think there will ever be a remake that can outdo the original when it comes to Poltergeist. Next up, let's talk about a remake that was better than the original. The top one for me is always John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a remake of The Thing from Another Planet, which is a black and white sci-fi movie from 1951. While both are based off of the 1938 book Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, there are a lot of differences as well as similarities when comparing the two movies. Both movies deal with an American military crew on a base in the Arctic. The original, they basically detect a UFO that crash lands near the airbase, and they wind up finding the crash site where an alien body, the Thing, is found frozen in the ice where the ship hit. They proceed to extract the body and take it back to the base. In Carpenter's version, the Norwegian base were the ones that found the ship and the Thing. The Thing escapes the Norwegians by taking form of a husky dog in which the American base camp rescues from being killed and then put in a kennel with their own huskies. One similarity is the use of huskies and how they basically alert the base crew to the Thing. Up on the screen I added a picture of my sister's husky, Nanook. Yes, named after the husky in The Lost Boys, and also means polar bear in Inuit. A big difference is that the crew size in the original is so much bigger than the Carpenter version. I think the crew size works well for both movies. The crew in the original also has females, whereas the remake does not, which I found interesting. but it works for both storylines. The opening credits are the same, which I think is really cool. The storylines are basically the same as well, with just some tweaks to make it more modern. While the original thing was more of an actual being, unlike the remake in which it mimics living beings, I think the remake one gives it more of a creepier sense, since you aren't able to identify the thing easily. I like that the remake's crew is smaller, and that they are all males. I think it keeps the story focused more on the thing and what it's doing, which makes the storyline tighter. In the original, one of the characters is a reporter, and reports what happens, and the remake has no reporter. I had the pleasure of meeting Keith David, who played Childs in Carpenter's version. He was such a nice and friendly guy to meet, and he had an amazing voice. While waiting online for another actor whose table was next to his, Keith David was playing a radio and singing while meeting fans. It was so cool to get to hear him singing. I really hope one day to meet Kurt Russell, who played MacReady in John Carpenter's The Thing. I suggest checking both movies out if you haven't already. They are both good movies that have different takes on the same storyline. I prefer John Carpenter's version more myself, simply because I found it a lot more scarier, knowing that you can't really tell if that's your teammate or if it's the thing. And if you are a fan of Carpenter's, then you saw a foreshadowing of him doing the thing in his first movie, Halloween, in which the thing from another planet is airing on the TV during the Halloween movie marathon that Tommy Doyle and Lindsay are watching. I highly recommend checking both versions out. My last comparison is a movie that had a remake that was a TV show, The Dead Zone, which is a book by Stephen King about a man named Johnny Smith who gets into a horrific car accident and winds up going into a coma for many years and wakes up having psychic powers. This is one of my favorite King books. The movie, which came out in 1983 and starred Christopher Walken as Johnny, is a great retelling of the book's story. Walken does the character Johnny with great justice, and the TV show, who stars Anthony Michael Hall as Johnny, also does the story and character great justice as well. I think both versions of The Dead Zone were perfect. The TV series was able to flesh out the Johnny Smith storyline, which was also changed a bit regarding who his parents were. The movie did its best with the limited amount of time to tell the story of Johnny Smith and how his psychic ability developed and how he went about using it. In the movie, Johnny Smith is a school teacher that gets into a car accident on his way home from dropping his girlfriend off after having a date at a local amusement park. He wakes up years later with psychic abilities that happen through touch. The TV show starts basically the same way, except it hints that Johnny was psychic all along, and that the car accident actually brought it out more. This comparison is a perfect example of how both the original and the remake could be good. The TV show was a favorite of mine when it was airing, and I always liked the movie. The movie's take is more simple, with Johnny having visions and how his world was turned upside down. The TV show mimicked most of the movie's storyline for the first few episodes till it got established. Some differences are that Johnny's parents in the movie are just everyday people, whereas in the TV show, they were rich. The ages of the characters were a bit different too. The TV show Johnny seemed to have been younger than the movie's character. The TV show made more of a storyline with Johnny and his ex-girlfriend Sarah, which was an ongoing storyline for the whole series. They fleshed out the sheriff in the TV show too, and added him to the main cast, as well as Johnny's physical therapist, Bruce. The movie tries to show Johnny's progression from waking up from the coma to how he learns what his ability actually is, and how he basically deals with it going forward, from saving a boy he tutors to the end where he sees someone running for president that he sees will destroy the world because of his thirst for power. Martin Sheen plays Greg Stilson, who is the politician running on a platform that draws votes from the working middle class. Johnny eventually meets Greg and gets an eyeful of what will happen if he becomes president, and it's not pretty at all. From that point on, Johnny is determined to stop Stilson from reaching presidency. The TV show slowly builds up this storyline of Stilson and actually gives more background to who Greg Stilson is by showing his past growing up in flashbacks. Greg is played by Sean Patrick Flanery. He was an excellent choice for the role. He fit right in with both the storyline and the cast. This TV show does take longer to build up the Johnny Greg storyline. It slowly progresses season after season. A lot happens to Johnny from the start till he meets Greg. There's a lot of storyline regarding his ex-girlfriend Sarah and her son, who is actually Johnny's son, and his relationship with them and her husband, Sheriff Bannerman. Some of my favorite episodes are actually the one-offs where the more intense storylines are not the main focus. One such episode is from season 1 called Enigma. It's about how he helps this elderly man find his lost love after having to go back to war during World War II. It's just a feel-good episode. There's a bunch more from season 1 as well as all other seasons. The show was on for 6 seasons. I really hope to meet Anthony Michael Hall one day so I can ask him about the show. If you're looking to check out the show currently, I have been watching it on Tubi. I will now wrap this up. My recommendations for a movie to watch is Strange Darling. It came out in 2023 and is such an underrated gem. Definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed. I'd like to thank a good friend of mine, Tracy, and his wife, Jess, who suggested that I do an episode on original versus remake. If you're looking for some cool coffin-shaped items, check their Instagram out, JBT Coffins to Die For. And that's 4 F-O-R, not the number. The link to their Insta is in the description. They do custom designs that are handmade, so definitely hit them up. I'd also like to thank Daunting Darkness for letting me use their music as my background. You can find them on YouTube at Daunting Darkness. The link for their page is in the description as well. One more shout out I would like to give, and that's to Squaredy Cats. This is a small business owned and operated by a friend of mine. They currently have a Kickstarter for new product. I have linked both their Kickstarter and their Instagram in my description. Their plushies are awesome and kid-friendly, so check them out. I myself have a large collection of theirs. You can see it in the image on the video currently. See all you ghouls next time on Luna's Den of Horror.